Good morning, race fans. Welcome back to another RDC After Hours. And boy howdy, is there a lot to talk about this week. I actually had a completely different video planned for today, but then my F1 notifications started popping off. So it's breaking news time, baby. We need to talk about this. Let's talk about Alpine, because what on earth is going on in the House of Enstone? Let's break down the whole situation. So on Monday, Oliver Oakes, who was the team principal at Alpine, resigned his position immediately. So that's that. He was team principal for less than a year. But this seems to be a never-ending story with Alpine. Like, every team principal that they have seems to quit pretty much about a year later. But I guess it makes sense with some of the characters that are in there. And speaking of those characters, Flavio Briatore is now taking over Oliver Oakes' duties as team principal. Somehow Palpatine returned. Or maybe I should say Palpatine? Palpine? I don't know. But if you take out some letters in Palpatine, it makes Alpine. So, coincidence? I think not. So not only is he going to keep doing his executive advisor duties or whatever he was doing, now he's also going to be team principal on top of that. So basically he's kind of the overlord at Alpine right now. I think overall no one really has any doubts as to how this happened. It's pretty obvious. So essentially there was kind of a sort of civil war going on inside of Alpine, where Oliver Oakes was the one who was rooting for Jack Doohan to stay on the team to give him like a chance, whereas Briatore was pushing for Colapinto to come back to replace Doohan. And his opinion was shared with Luca De Meo, who is the CEO of Renault and therefore kind of the final boss at Alpine. So Briatore was kind of just acting as a puppet, as a spokesman for De Meo. And so now, Flavio Briatore is back to being the team boss at Alpine, essentially Renault. What year are we in? The amount of memes I've already seen about Crashgate Part 2 is genuinely staggering. We're really letting a known criminal be a team principal of the same team again, huh? Like, Renault, have you learned nothing? FIA, have you learned nothing? And in case some of y'all don't know what Crashgate is, I'm gonna just do a little quick rundown of what happened. If you want to skip this part, you can fast forward to this part of the video. So Crashgate was probably one of the craziest scandals, not just in Formula One, but probably in sports as a whole. So back in the Singapore Grand Prix of 2008, Fernando Alonso, yes, Fernando Alonso, he's that old. Fernando Alonso, who was like the star driver at Renault at the time, had qualified really low, like P16 or something. So on the day of the race, the team, which of course was led by Flavio Briatore, started Alonso with really low fuel in the hopes that there would be a safety car. And then the safety car came because his teammate, Nelson Piquet Jr., crashed. And so Alonso saw the opportunity, went for it, went into the pits, refueled, changed his tires, and eventually won the race. Fast forward a year later, Nelson Piquet Jr. was fired from Renault, so he proceeded to go to the FIA and tell them that in fact the crash that he had in Singapore 2008 was on purpose, and he had been asked by Briatore and by the chief engineer at the time at Renault, who was Pat Simmons, to crash on purpose so there would be a safety car so Alonso could win. And at first, Briatore and Simmons denied it, but then they confessed that it was actually true. So the FIA fired them and then banned them from participating in any FIA-sanctioned events from that point on. But that was later overturned in court. So now we have Briatore back at Renault Alpine as team principal, and Fernando Alonso, who was also complicit in Crashgate, still racing and still in a Formula One team. And time is a flat fucking circle, evidently. I've already actually seen people trying to implicate Alonso in this whole Oliver Oakes Briatore situation, saying, well, you know, if Max ends up signing with Aston Martin, he's going to be the one who has to leave the seat, right? So then Briatore would probably take him in again if he helped him, you know, get his way, sign Colapinto, get rid of Doohan, do some, like, things behind the scenes. I don't know, it's insane. I don't think it's true, but it is funny to think about. Anyway, getting serious for a moment. This, to me, is absolutely fucked up. Briatore as team principal again, is inadmissible. Briatore should not be anywhere near Formula One, or anywhere near the world of sports, for that matter. He's a known criminal. He essentially gambled with one of his drivers' lives, one of the drivers he was responsible for, in order to fix a race. He chose points in championship over a life. Understand, there is no safe way to crash in Formula One. Nelson Piquet Jr. was asked to crash on purpose. There's no safe way to do it. There's no way in which you're not, to some extent, risking your life. It's just insane that we're just gonna sweep Briatore's crimes under the rug and let him be team principal again. It's insane that the FIA is okay with this, and the FOM too. And that's just one of the many problems I have with Formula One, is the people with power within the sport keep getting away with white-collar crimes, and it's disgusting. Like, we're basically collecting evil team principals like they're infinity stones at this point. We got Horner, who is like a known sex predator and very problematic towards his employees, and also just being Horner in general. Zach Brown, who is a Trump supporter, and Briatore, who is a criminal. Just insane. And I'm sure there's other controversies with the other team principals that I don't even know about, so feel free to add them onto here. So, as we said earlier, Oliver Oakes was kind of the last bastion in keeping Jack Doohan at the team. So now with him out of the way, Briatore and his friends have free reign to bring in Franco Colapinto. And that's exactly what happened. Earlier today, we got the confirmation. It's official. Franco Colapinto will be replacing Doohan, but there's a catch. It's only for 5 races. To me, the fact that they've publicized the fact that it's 5 races is interesting. Like, maybe it was something that was in Franco's contract and they had to do it that way, but it's odd that they said it. It seems like the kind of thing that the team would actually keep to themselves usually, because let's say that the 5 races go by and then the team decides that Franco is going to be the one to stay in the seat and they're not going to put in Doohan again. Then, like, it would look nicer for the team to just say that they hired Franco for the rest of the year and that's it, instead of giving us all this extra information about the trial period, you know? Especially when the most likely thing is that they'll just keep Franco around after the 5 races. Because, like, they're not going to bring Doohan back up. Oliver Oakes is gone. There's no reason that Briatore needs to concern himself with Doohan anymore, you know? So I think the reason that they said it was 5 races publicly was an attempt to try to look better in the eyes of the media and the fans vis-a-vis the whole Jack Doohan situation. Because it makes Alpine look like they're being more fair to Doohan. Like, oh, we gave Jack 6 races and we're giving Franco 5. So there you go, it's basically equal. But in reality, we all know that most likely Doohan is not going to go back to that Alpine. So I guess my question is, what's the end goal here? What is Alpine really trying to do? Because if they keep Franco after the 5 races, then it's kind of like they've created this false hope for Doohan. Like, they led him on thinking that he would realistically have another attempt at being in the team, but in reality that was never going to be the case. And that just seems really manipulative on Alpine's part. It's kind of like how they handled the whole Mick Schumacher situation. So yeah, I guess Alpine just sucks at handling these things, and it's really problematic also. But let's explore the scenario in which they actually rotate the 2 drivers. Then it's pointless, because neither of the drivers are going to get enough experience in that car, and neither of them are going to get used to the car and, you know, grow as drivers, because realistically they need really like a whole season, but at least half a season to get used to a car. So if they're rotating, if they're going through these like really small periods of driving, they're not going to actually adapt to the car. And so you're going to have 2 drivers who are okay at driving in the Alpine rather than 1 driver who is really good at it. So they've created this like unnecessary catch-22 for themselves. Like, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Classic Alpine, I guess. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is that Mercado Libre, which is one of Colapinto's sponsors, put out this ad right after Alpine confirmed Colapinto. And in the ad, Franco is saying, "Nos vemos en Imola," which means see you in Imola. That ad was obviously not filmed last night, last minute. It was probably filmed months ago, at least weeks ago, which means that Colapinto knew that he was going to be driving in Imola, and he didn't say anything to Jack. Although I know it's not really his responsibility to tell Jack, but it seems like bad teamwork a little bit not to say anything. Kind of like how Charles Leclerc knew that Carlos was going to get sacked from Ferrari before the announcement and didn't say anything. Just kind of shitty. But Ferrari's another topic for another day. But still, the ad just feels kind of like a disrespectful little jab at Jack Doohan, like, oh, I'm taking your seat, and I knew this for a while. Like, I don't know. I just didn't like the vibe of it. And also, like, what if Doohan had done well in Miami? What if he'd scored points? What if he'd gotten a cheeky podium because there was a crazy safety car situation and Alpine put themselves up there like they do sometimes? What then? Would they have still put out the ad? Because that's crazy. That would have been completely out of pocket. So yeah, I don't know, just a weird situation with that as well. There does seem to be some more like complexity to this whole situation though, because we know that nothing in Formula One ever happens without money being involved. And we know that Alpine is a team that has been wanting to be bought for a while now. Like, they are begging for someone to come in and take over the team. So I think the reason why Briatore was so keen to sign Colapinto is because he believes that a team with a driver like Colapinto, as opposed to Jack Doohan, looks a lot stronger and has more value for a potential buyer. So it's all this like marketing ploy, essentially, for Alpine, which is annoying, of course. So overall, I have pretty mixed feelings about the whole situation. Like, obviously, I'm Hispanic, I'm going to support a Hispanic driver, and I'm super excited to see Colapinto back in F1. I think he's fantastic. I think he did well enough at Williams to prove that he deserves a spot in Formula One. And I'm super excited to see him back, and I'm excited to see what he'll bring to the table. And also, I'm excited for the Argentinian fans to start popping up again, because remember how fun it was to see them in the stands every weekend? Like, they went all out in their support for Franco, and it was amazing to see. I need more of that in Formula One in general, okay? I need more teams to be hype, you know? To show, like, your love for the team or your love for a driver. Like, put yourselves out there. And I think the Argentinians nail it every time in every sport. In general, Hispanic and Latino fans are always the most hype, and I just want to see more of that. But on the other hand, I do feel really sorry for Jack Doohan. And just to be clear, he was by no means my favorite driver, but I feel that he's been done so dirty. Not even the Liam Lawson situation was this bad, because Liam Lawson, frankly, should never have been put in the Red Bull to begin with. But with Jack, I feel really sorry, because while it's true that his performance has been underwhelming at best, you do need to give your rookies room to grow. Okay? They need time. And then after a certain period, if Doohan truly does not perform well, then you get rid of him. But not yet. I think it's way too early. And not only was Doohan dealing with the pressure from the fans and the media, like, all of us at some point were like, I don't know how long he's gonna last. I wonder how many races he has left in his contract. Like, when is he going to be fired? But he also faced so much pressure from the team itself, like internal pressure from the team, because he very clearly did not have the full support of the team. And as a driver, especially a new driver, that has to rattle you, and that has to affect your performance. So yeah, I feel sorry for Doohan, but that can coexist with my excitement for Franco. So it's kind of a complicated situation. So I guess we'll see what happens in 5 races. But anyway, I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the whole situation, because it's been less than a day and things are already crazy. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you think about the whole situation. Are you happy for Franco? Are you sad about Doohan? Are you frustrated with the whole Briatore thing? Let me know. Let's have a conversation. And like I said, this completely thwarted my video plans for another topic, so maybe I will post that between now and the race weekend in Imola. Hopefully the topic is not completely obsolete by then. We'll see. We'll make it work. And yep, that's all for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay fueled.